Welcome back to FreightWaves Now, and Thomas Wasson in the house. What's going on, my friend?
Well, first, I did forget to give Tony Mulvey a shout out. It is his birthday.
It is.
So we're going to cut that within the thing and paste it up on FreightWaves.
Oh.
tv.freightwaves.com. Happy birthday, Tony. So we're just throwing that out of the way as the first topic, but
Special birthday edition.
yeah, exactly. I'll see him in the carrier update soon. But, you know, a lot of fun things going on here. Just published the Loaded and Rolling, the newsletter. Kind of like Spaceballs, the, brand or whatever. But
Spaceballs, the lunchbox.
Exactly. And so, I mean, there's been a lot of interesting, fascinating things going on. And one of the cool first things I got to do was I had on the show MIT. And the question was, when the markets change, do shippers and carriers behave the same? So, a little bit of backstory here. 2018, there was a piece published, Elephants or Goldfish? Basically, how do carriers, do they have a long-term memory? The problem is in trucking that you're so dang busy, you often barely figure out how to make enough money during the week or fill the buckets for your load. So the research showed that they have a remarkably short memory in terms of the relationship aspect.
It only shocks me that they had to do a research to figure that out.
Ask anyone on the operations floor and they're like, what happened in week 25?
I'm going to guess what your research is going to tell.
We age in dog years in trucking, and yeah, I'd attack on every 5 or 7. And so it went in to show that really you're reacting to things that happen in the market or the shipper behavior or prices and rates. So. Fast forward, research they're working on now, we got to look into, is how shippers behave. And so you got to think about it for a second. Shippers are busy doing demand planning and other things. It turns out that so far, they have the ability to kind of remember those who basically hose them on service or rate.
Sure.
Because as they're much slower moving. They're thinking of it's more stability and based on how their businesses are set up. So it's fascinating to see because at the end of the day, the behaviors are still based around, are you tendering loads consistently? Is your rate in the market?
So let me, and all that makes perfect sense, right? And I mean, anybody who's been in business more than a few years understands this. When you've been through a cycle or two, you go, yeah, okay, they're going to do this again. Like, I mean, yeah. I mean, we all knew that during the pandemic, all the carriers are going to forget that this is not going to last forever, right? Some people still think it's still lasting. I don't understand that thought process. But did they dig into why this occurs between those two and why one is reactionary and one is better planning? Is it a matter of resources and the type of business that they have? The shippers and manufacturers typically have departments that look at this planning more and can spend that capital to do that over a lower margin carrier logistics type of thing?
Well, that's what the research appears to be showing is that it's structural. A carrier, a motor carrier is constantly, finding things to haul. It's a searching activity with multiple customers.
But I'm saying, is that because they don't invest in that? And because it would seem like that's changing now, right? Because it's all about trying to figure out what's going to happen next and redoing your supply chain and visibility and transparency, finally.
Yeah, well, I mean, yes and no. The first problem is that as a carrier, you can't really predict with accuracy whether the shipper will hold their commitment each week.
Sure, but I agree with that. But as a shipper and a manufacturer, you can't predict how fickle the American consumer is going to be in the next 6 months either.
Correct, but since they're the shipper, though, being in the position of needing things hauled and having that demand planning group, yes, they literally have subsets within. If you're a large shipper organization, your transportation management team, your demand planners and stuff, these folks' sole purpose is to figure out predicting how much crap do I need, what are my inputs, and how much do I need to ship. As a carrier, on the other hand, you do have a pricing team. You do have, if you're large enough, planning managers, customer service managers, they're performing similar roles, but it's the opposite. You don't have that kind of consistency in your customer mix to where there's always going to be an up or down. Let's say I have top 5 of my mix, 3 retailers, a manufacturer, and then a consumer packaged goods one. The problem is, as the economy changes, as tender volumes change, you're going to have fluctuations to where you're constantly trying to, either balance or put more freight into the system for your assets to move. Now, if you're a smaller carrier, you're like, what load am I going to pick today? You know, if you have 5 trucks, this is a
And
different
they all speak
conversation.
like that, too.
Yeah, you know, I'm Southern, so you know, if you're a smaller carrier, you know, when I worked for a 5-truck and moved it up to 50 trucks, yeah, we were just busy on, are you hauling something? When you get to the large levels of carriers, it's like, am I receiving enough inputs to haul? So, I mean, to me, it does feel structural. The fun fact was, this was near the end of the conversation with the folks at MIT, Angela Iconcelli, you gotta check her out. They have really good research, was that both carriers and shippers will sometimes do deceptive behaviors in terms of... No, I know.
No.
The science has spoken.
No.
The carrier will either say, I have more capacity than I do, or the shipper will say, I will tender you more loads than I have. So,
I find that hard to believe.
lying on the internet. Who would do such a thing? But, you know, we used to joke when I worked at a large carrier, you don't make money with 1 truck and 1 load. You make money with 2 loads and 1 truck, and you convince the customer you're eventually going to pick the second one up.
That's exactly right.
And so it's so fascinating. I really like the research that they're doing, because it's one thing for us to talk about it, trucking, tribal knowledge, etc. It's another thing to see the statistics, the science, the game theory behind all of this, and actually see these behaviors with data.
Okay, so when you look at this research, one of the things that strikes me the most, and I'll ask this question of you, is it is that relationship. We talk about transparency, right? And we talk about visibility and all the algorithms and new tech and all this other kind of stuff. And you can put as many EDLs and IoT devices and all this kind of thing all over your trucks as much as you want, until you have that relationship with those planners, right? At the shippers and manufacturers, you are always going to be the tail being wagged by the dog.
Yes.
You've got to have those relationships and be ingrained, and that's true collaboration and visibility. Is it not? Is having that relationship with those shippers to be able to plan where your capacity is going to go based on what they are going to be doing as well, and not reacting to what they're doing?
So that's what's the interesting part. It does show the relationships matter. The shippers value the relationships of their incumbents, and we can show so far that shippers will remember and prioritize and help out carriers, whether through a trailer pool, whether through their pricing and contracting. We do know that shippers do that. But as a carrier, though, we used to joke you'd hurt one customer this week and help that customer the next week, because the situation is structural. As a carrier, you're going to have being pulled in 5, 10, 20 different directions by these shippers. So while the shipper will say, I've got a team of 10 carriers, I've got my primaries, my secondaries, as a carrier, you're kind of in this awkward situation where you do want to service as many customers as possible, but these customers will also throw curveballs at you. Some of them will say, I need you to take 20 over commitment this week. That's a zero-sum game, because that means another customer, another shipper that you do have a relationship with. So you're right. When we talk about relationship management, they mean 2 different things, because as a carrier, you have to leverage these relationships and you have to goose up each one that you've pissed off. But as a shipper, you also have these relationships. You're paying attention to those and making sure that they're acting consistently, and that they're consistently taking your freight, they're consistently servicing it, and that you're in the pack. So it's a weird, delicate dance where relationships we would assume would be something that's rock solid, that would be like, but it can sometimes feel like frenemies when the markets turn, because each group wants something different. Our relationship means one thing.
It is totally a frenemies relationship. It always is a frenemies relationship. There's always a lot of wink, wink, nudge, nudge, say no more going on there. Is it fixable? Because this is inherent, or is it that's just the way it's going to be? Because that is completely inefficient, and it will always be an inefficient industry unless we can overcome some of those challenges. And those challenges are that both sides knows what the other side is doing, yet they pretend they don't, and they keep dancing.
The fixable part comes to incentives. And right now, the reason things are so bad is it's incentives. The customer looks at transportation as a line item, and the carrier looks at these loads as profit opportunities. One side wants more money, the other side wants lower costs. So currently, we do have this friction between a carrier and a shipper because we're prioritizing different things. With technology and stuff, we hopefully will see with visibility that more customers are becoming aware of how they behave. Are my facilities good? Am I detaining people? Am I doing the right thing? At the same time, we hope more carriers with this knowledge are working on ways to communicate and show the shipper that they actually don't have this capacity. I'm not just, bluffing. So
Right. Excellent stuff. Always interesting conversation. I wish we could keep going on. We'll continue at the bar later this afternoon. Right now, I'm going to toss it over to Kaylee Nix and latest look at our weather.